So let me tell you, because you probably clicked on this video because of the title, right? Ace has never, ever, ever even crossed my mind of whether I should or should not start. Like, it even baffles me to even think that that would have been one of the reasons for me not to show up right now. And I think in general, we constantly like over exaggerate our obsession with our age and what we look like. And then you might think, oh, it's easy for you to say because you look like 25 when you're in your 40s. I'm very aware of that. But exactly that is the reason why I'm going to start telling this story. When I graduated high school, or no, it was university. When I was done with university, I was actually very young still. I was 20 when I got the diploma and 21 when I started my first job. I got it straight out of university, and it was for a big bank in the Netherlands. My mom used to work there for 30 years. And I was like, oh, why not? And they have some really interesting scholarships. But when I had a conversation with the director, he was like, you know what, I'm going to hire you as an advisor, like straight away. So I was planted in an office. I had 2 offices in a region. And yeah, me, 20 years old, giving advice on mortgages and finances and all of that. And I just did it. I'm like, okay, sure, of course, I had that confidence of, and I just got out of school. So I was still in that, learning energy of it's normal to learn new stuff. So until one day, I had a meeting with a client, with a customer, and I believe she was like around 70, 80 years old. The moment I stepped into that office or in that meeting room, she looked at me like, I'm not gonna let a little piece of beep tell me how to run my finances. And I'm like, I was so shocked with how she was talking to me. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I went out and I went to my colleague. I'm like, she just said this to me. In Dutch, she said, ik laat een snotaap mij niet vertellen hoe ik mijn financiën moet gaan beheren. And I'm like, oh my God, like completely flabbergasted that she spoke to me in that tone. And I obviously was upset. And then I learned something. I'm like, Ash, even though you're confident and you're smart and all of that, that's not how the world sees you. Look at yourself in the mirror. Like, I had a baby face, guys. And so I'm sharing this because I had all the reasons to have age, define me. Sometimes it's because you look older, sometimes it's because you look younger, but it never stopped me. So the next job was Dell, and I loved working for Dell Computers in Amsterdam, and I worked there for 5 years. And I remember when I was hired, I was one of the first female hires. Like, it was a very masculine work environment. And, I think in the States it's more equal. I kind of know because, I also worked for a lot of other American companies, and I saw for myself that, in the tech space it's pretty, equally divided. But in Europe, and especially from my experience in the Netherlands, it wasn't, it was like this little amount of women and then a lot of guys. And so instantly the stigma was like, well, you only got hired because you're a girl, or you're only performing well because of your looks. And I started as an inside, I was working inside, like I wasn't an external rep. So I'm like, my clients don't even see me. They don't even know what I look like, until LinkedIn. But anyway, it was more about people were constantly judging me for my looks or the fact that I was female, and I was using it to my benefit. But the thing is this, when I started working for Dell and I did not have a tech background, I went to our TSR, our technical sales rep, and I was like, you know what, Paul, I figured that if I want to make my targets, I really need to focus on enterprise. And enterprise is like server, storage, and everything in between, all the services around it as well. Because if you hit that, you hit your margins, you hit your revenue, and you basically hit your monthly target and your quarterly target. But I had no idea how storage worked or virtual machines and all of that. And so I went to him, and then he started to explain to me in plain, simple language about, how you have this highway, and if you work with virtual machines, you basically add more highways, which makes it faster, and, you have more backup and blah, 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 blah. So I started to understand the whole concept, and I started to just sell it and, spot the opportunities in my account base. Long story short, I became incredibly successful. I even closed the biggest deal ever, like $2.5 million dollar deal. I won several awards as a sales rep, and I obviously was promoted to I was in a small business team, and I was promoted to the platinum account. So that's basically the highest tier there. And so one of the guys who also worked in our division, so the small business division, he was promoted to my team, and he was sitting behind me. And one day he was like, Ash, I have to tell you this. I always had a huge opinion about you, thinking that, you used your looks and the fact that you're a female and your voice, blah, 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 to be successful. But now that I'm witnessing you for myself, I'm actually really grateful to be in your team, because I'm learning so much about you and how you do business, and you're really talented, you're really good. And I'm saying that because the odds were against me. Like, I never knew how jealous and mean guys can be until I worked for Dell. And I still love that time at Dell, so it never, crunched me. But realistically speaking, like, they are vicious, and they couldn't stand that a woman was successful. And so they were very vocal about it. Next job, I started working for an integration software company, and the guy that hired me flew all the way from the States to give me that, the proposition and everything. And the people that were in my team were all around my mom's age. So they could all have been my parents. And so I think I was 25. So it was right after Dell. I was 25, 26, and I got this enterprise sales manager role, which allowed me to travel the world. And this time I was more out-facing. And eventually, his name was John Anakin. I love that guy. He hired me. Again, I faced backlash, especially in my European office, because there was this guy who was like, "Hey, I should have been promoted to that level," and. But John hired me because of, that craziness in me, who's like, I believe in myself and I can do this, and I go for it, full in. That's definitely that type of, like in corporate, I was a type of person. I am still that type of person, but I'm different now. Like, there's less ego involved, let's put it that way. I'm not saying that ego is bad, by the way, we do need it. But I was like, yeah, I'm just going for it. So long story short, I remember one day, and back then I already got a local manager, because I was basically hired as the first European hire. And because of the success, they start to invest more and more in our European office, which was based in my hometown, The Hague. And so I ended up having a local sales director. And because I was the first European hire, I was the one that, guided him through, meeting all the partners. Like, we work closely with Microsoft and Salesforce and also our clients and stuff. And I remember, I think he was already there for over a year. I was working on a huge deal. It was a Dutch company. And I met the client or prospect back then in Barcelona during a huge Microsoft event. And we really just have rapport, And so when I went to the office and we were about to close a huge deal, my manager insisted that he wanted to join us. And what I saw happening in that meeting was that the director, who was, again, like twice my age, he really was focused on me. And he was like, I want to hear from you, Ash, and I trust you, Ash. And for me, it was like this feeling of, I'm so grateful for that part of me that never let my age or the way that I look or the fact that I'm a girl, a woman, dictate how life looks at me. Because, and this is what I learned, and that's why I'm sharing it. When I would walk into a space, especially, in the tech world, right, dominated by men, I cannot tell you how often, especially during events, people thought I was a booth babe instead of the sales manager for the enterprise division. Like, 9 out of 10, they literally were trying to hit on me, or just, think that, they had to wait for my manager before they could talk about business. it was hilarious, but I never saw myself as a victim in that story. I never thought like, oh, I always had this mindset of, you know what, if they already have low expectations of me simply because of my looks, or simply because of the fact that I'm a girl, or that I look younger than my age, or even I was young back then, the more impact I can make when I show them my know-how. Because I always made sure that I know what I was doing. You know, like, remember the time at Dell, I did my due diligence. You know, when I started working for the other company, the integration software company, I had a senior colleague. So he was actually sent from the States to the Netherlands, because he was working that division for many years from home, waking up early to cover the media space. And so because they now opened that office in Europe, she actually was sent to Europe and lived here, you know. And so I went to her every Saturday for a few weeks for her to teach me the technical part of our software. I officially was not a technical sales rep, but because of the time difference, we did not have a local technical sales rep back then. So Pierre, who was our technical sales rep, he was based in the States, and I think we had like a like a 7-hour time difference. I don't recall where he was, like where he lived, but it was huge, the time difference. So basically, end of my workday was his, you know, start of his workday. And for me to be, you know, like for me to be able to be successful, I had to become more self-sufficient. And we just launched our cloud solution because a lot of it was still, you know, on-premise. And so I was like, okay, I have to learn this because this is the future. I need to be able to do my own demos. I did that in my own freaking time, guys, because I realized at work, you're just busy with work. And I went down like the uneasy path of just learning, trial and error, making my own integrations and a demo account. And this is what made me successful. That's the behind the scenes stuff. So when I would face people, yeah, I looked cute and I always made sure, because I love fashion, I would wear cute stuff because that's just who I am. But I knew what the F I was talking about. And so the good thing is, like, and that's kind of the point that I wanted to make, when you come into a room and you already know that the odds are against you and that people don't take you serious, when you know your stuff, they instantly have disrespect. You know, like my manager, who was like 50-ish back then, and he was a big guy, like literally he was tall and he was big, and that's like impressive. When he walks into a room, he's there, and he had a huge background in Oracle and all of that. Everybody kind of already knows that you can expect from this guy that he knows what he's talking about, but not for me. So the thing is, because I knew my stuff, and I wasn't afraid to be there. Like, I even remember this huge chance that I got to present for a local British bank, and Microsoft invited me to do that presentation in their office. And it's nerve-wracking, right? Because I'm representing Microsoft there, because Microsoft was like, well, we can sell this deal, but we kind of need your software for the integration because they work on this old back-end SAP system. We need you guys for that integration part. So come in and meet the client. I was so scared because it's like there's so much, dependent on this. But at the same time, I'm like, I know my stuff. I know my thing. And then I just shift into that energy of not looking at what it could be perceived as, or even the pressure of, oh my God, this is so important, but just having fun around it. And even thinking, I had that too. I would think about the aftermath, like once it's done, the relief and the excitement, and, meeting the client afterwards and hanging out with my buddies of Microsoft, because we became really close. And it was like, okay, let's do this. This is just a little tiny part of the whole adventure, Moral of the story, I never let it back me down. And I think part of it was also because I was raised in a multicultural setting. Like my dad is Caribbean. He's from this beautiful island called Curacao. And he's a mix. And I know from stories about his life that he was, he was too white back on the island. So he was, bullied for that. He's a tough guy, so he was okay with that. But when he came to Holland, and it's like a Dutch colony, Curacao. So when he came to Holland, he was also mistreated because of his skin tone, because then he was too black, right? And then my mom, who is Indian originally, but she was born and raised in Suriname, which is in South America. Same thing, like same story. And especially when they met, my grandparents, my mom's side, they did not approve of that union because he wasn't Indian. And so, and I'm not saying that because it worked out fine eventually, like I had very loving grandparents, but back then, my mom, when she was pregnant with my brother, was actually the first time that she started to reconnect with my grandparents. So I kind of always was raised with that as I don't want to say reality, but I was always different. But instead of thinking, because all my cousins, they were all Indian. Like now I do have some mixed cousins, but they came much later in life because my uncle had his kids pretty late. So like in the first 9 years of my life, I was basically with my brother, the only mixed child. And my sister came 9 years later, right? So then the three of us. But I always saw it as a privilege. I don't know what's with my mind, but I never thought it was something I should be ashamed of. I didn't want to be ashamed of it because of all the shame that I already saw that my parents had to go through, right? And I'm like, I don't want to. I actually love that I am different. We moved from The Hague to a smaller town at some point in my younger years, and I was in this classroom full of white kids. It never bothered me at all. And I think that is honestly this winning story that we can also tell ourselves, because I'm not sure if you ever heard about this game, but it's like, okay, look around the room and look at all the objects that are red, for example, and now close your eyes and turn around. And then I would say, okay, and now tell me all the objects that were green. And then most people don't know because they only focus on the red stuff. Red being the negative stuff and then the green being the positive stuff. That's kind of how life works, right? Like, do you want to focus on the negatives or do you want to focus on the positives? Some way, somehow, I just always embraced the fact that I was different as a good thing. And therefore, I was able to accomplish a lot of stuff very young because I never saw my color, my race, the fact that I'm a female or that I had a baby face as a disadvantage. And now I'm 40. I'm starting this. I never even thought once like, whoa, this is huge. No, it's not. I'm just starting, I'm not making a big deal out of it. I'm not busy with aging at all. I still feel very young. And I think the reason I feel young is because I never let age define me. Not when I was young and people thought I was not good enough. And not now either, And it never stopped me either because last year I made this huge dream come true, which was I started at modeling. And actually it was people asking me to model for their businesses. And the weird thing is they just kept on coming. And it's like, do I have like this sign on in front of my head that says that I'm a model? I don't know. Maybe it's something here in Mexico. But, like there are no rules on how tall you have to be because I'm not that tall. But I think it's because I really owned it. It's like, okay, you want me to model? Okay, now I'm a model. And then you have a different energy because I just owned it. I'm like, I'm not going to hide. I am a model and people can book me for that. And I'm telling this story because I think it's so overrated to have our looks, our race, our, like ethnicity, or anything as an excuse to stop pursuing your dreams and to stop just being who you are. And to give you that high five of, go pursue everything. Be completely who you are. And saying that, like, there are definitely insecurities that I have. But whenever I see that, I face them. Because I'm like, I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to hold myself back, Like, the whole journey here, too, is me getting out of that comfort zone. Well, I'm out of that comfort zone, trust me. But it took some time to get there, So I'm not saying that everything was always smooth, but when it comes to this, like my age, never was it a problem. And I think that actually is the reason why I stay so young. Like it sounds maybe weird, but I honestly think that's why I stay young. My mom got gray hair, I think, very early on. I think even mid-20s, he started to get gray hair. My brother, gray. Like, we're just 2.5 years apart. I this is still natural. So if I look at my roots, I should have gray hair. And I honestly think it's because of the way I live and of how my mind works and how I embrace everything and how I'm not busy with anything to keep myself young. The only thing I do to keep myself young, guys, is I honor my spirit. I honor that little girl inside of me, and that's sometimes confrontational. But it is what I do. And it actually reminds me of the next episode, because I'm gonna film the second episode for tomorrow already today, because I had this amazing idea, and it's like, yeah, and that's gonna happen today, so I'm already gonna record it. So yeah, I think that's it. I made some notes, and let me double check if I said everything that I wanted to say. This is so funny. I think I said everything, but it's like when you make notes really fast, my handwriting, I'm not sure if you have that too, it's just, I can't read it. So it's like, huh? Yeah, okay. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.